The Fishin' Magazine television series is brought to you by Ranger Boats. Still building them one at a time so you can fish hard, run strong, and rest easy. Bass Pro Shops. Quantum and Motor Guide, the choice of serious fishermen. L&L Marine Care products. Take the chore out of marine maintenance. Fishing hotspots. Maps so good, people ask for them by name. Pinpoint Network Fishing Systems. Daylight Corporation. The Fishing Hole in St. Louis, Missouri, and Central Pro-Am Association, the leader in Pro-Am bass tournaments.
Hi, this is Ernie Daughtery. Welcome to the Fishin' Magazine television series. We're on Table Rock Lake for the final day of the 1999 Titlist Pro-Am Bass Tournament. Today we find out who is the best of the best. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
All come down to this, the final day on the water for some of America's best bass fishermen in the inaugural Central Pro-Am Titleist Tournament. On the first day of the tournament, Larry Seeger stole the spotlight from his more famous colleagues by bringing in a limit that weighed 18.9 pounds. He retained the lead on day 2 by catching another limit that weighed over 15 pounds. Now, he and the other Titleist competitors who've won Pro Division titles or won titles as amateurs before moving to the Pro Division head into the third and final day of competition on demanding Table Rock Lake. With Table Rock several feet high, many of the competitors have been successful pitching to flooded vegetation or fishing deep diving crankbaits on nearby points. But as the tournament has progressed, catches have diminished. Weekend anglers and recreational boat traffic have made the bass wary and open water patterns harder to fish. As they prepare for the final day, Seeger and the other leaders hope their patterns will hold just one more day. Recapping results from the first 2 days of competition, Larry Seeger holds the Pro Division lead with 33.35 pounds. Close behind him on the Motor Guide Pro-Am scoreboard is Brent Chapman with 31.3 pounds. But Larry Wilcox, Orlean Smith, and Mark Tucker are all within striking distance. In the rest of the top 10, Dion Hibden leads the way in 6th place with Howard Buning, Ken McTeer, Terry Thomas, and Eric Holt in hot pursuit. In the amateur division, Pro-Am veteran Mike Smith holds down the top spot with 22.55 pounds, while Larry Stevie, Frank Divis, Ron Foss, and Steve Bingham are close behind. In the rest of the top 10, Ron Chapman heads the list in 6th place with 18.45 pounds, with Brian Herndon close behind in 7th. Larry Seeger and Brian Herndon are out with the third flight and head to the areas of flooded vegetation in Fisher Creek, where Seeger's caught back-to-back limits on shallow-running crankbaits. Although conditions today seem like those on the previous days, Seeger immediately senses that things have changed. He's not getting strikes, as he did on the first 2 days. And even when Herndon comes through with a keeper, Seeger knows instinctively that adjustments are going to be necessary. Brent Chapman started the day 2 pounds behind Seeger, and he's fishing a similar pattern in other areas near Kimberling City. Chapman's fish are deeper than Seeger's, but they've been just as reliable for 2 days. However, Chapman, too, senses that conditions in the Kimberling City area of the lake have changed for the worse. Chapman is not getting strikes like he did previously, and when he does, the bass are all too small to keep. Eventually, he moves in closer, pitching to the flooded bushes. But when that produces no strikes, Chapman decides to abandon the spots he's been fishing and try the area near Table Rock Dam. Calvin Horn, who won the Bull Shoals Pro-Am earlier in the year, is having better success, working a jig slowly across the bottom. This is the first time he's ever fished Table Rock, and he's learning quickly. His catch has improved each day, and if he can come in with another limit, he's in position for a money finish. Ken McTeer started the day in 8th place, and he, like many of the others, stayed in the Kimberling City area. But his spots are out in more open water, and he's continuing to catch fish. But McTeer was over 7 pounds behind Seeger, and he'll need bigger fish to have a chance at victory. Mark Tucker started the day in 5th place, and today he's doing what he does as well as anyone, swimming his trademark white jig around boat docks. Slowly, he's working his way to a limit, pitching his jig into places other anglers might not risk. But Tucker knows that's where the big ones hide, and he needs big fish to be in position to win. In 1995, Orlean Smith shook up the bass fishing world by becoming Central Pro-Am's Angler of the Year as a rookie. But today, he's struggling, and it's easy to tell. He had limits the first 2 days, pitching to flooded willows and buckbrush. So when you see Orlean Smith, the master of shallow water patterns he learned on Oklahoma's Lake Eufaula, out Carolina rigging in 15 feet of water, you know things aren't going well. Larry Wilcox is shaking a smoke-colored grub in 25 to 50 feet of water out in front of the ramp at Mill Creek. He's caught good limits 2 days in a row, and he knows another limit could put him in position to win. Unfortunately, things aren't going his way right now. He's got 4 fish, but if he continues to let keepers get away at the boat, he knows he's letting his chances for victory slip through his fingers. Larry Seeger knows that feeling well. The shallow water pattern that carried him for 2 days has fallen apart, and he's trying everything he can think of. He even heads for spots other anglers might shun in an effort to get keepers to bite, like areas that are out of the wind and dead calm. Finally, Seeger decides not to scurry around Table Rock, hoping to find fish that are biting. He heads back to Fisher Creek, determined to win or lose in an area where he knows there are fish. Meanwhile, things are looking better for anglers who chose to run up the James River arm of the lake. After briefly taking the tournament lead early on day 1, Dion Hibden learned his lesson on day 2 when he came in with only 3 bass. He finally realized the bass had not moved out deeper, they'd moved in tighter to the brush, so he's following them. Hibden's flipping into the heaviest cover he can find, and when a bass hits, he's more than ready to venture into the jungle to get it out. What's more, Hibden knows he's competing for water with the hundreds of weekend anglers out on Table Rock today, so he's concentrating on spots so tedious to fish that weekend anglers generally ignore them. For 2 days, Eric Holt stayed among the leaders by shaking plastic worms and grubs in front of suspended bass in one area up the James River. But trailing leader Larry Seeger by 8 pounds going into the final day, Holt has changed tactics and is fishing a deep diving crankbait in the same area, hoping to land bigger fish. So far, his plan is working, and if he can catch one more good fish to complete his limit, he could be in position to win all the marbles. Unlike many of the tournament anglers, Kelly Power and Jim Harney are catching lots of fish. The problem is, that's right, all of them are small. Power was in 20th place after day 2, so if he can get the bigger fish to turn on, he could be in the running for a top 10 finish. Stay tuned for the exciting final weigh-in. We'll be right back.
If you enjoy this,
Hints from some of Central Pro-Am's top competitors. Brought to you by Daylight Donuts, the best donuts around. When Calvin Horn returned from Vietnam, injuries he received there forced him to change the way he fished. But as he proved at Bull Shoals and here in the Titleist tournament, he can compete with the best when he fishes his way.
I never use a rod. I always use a reel. It's kind of a I don't know, fallacy of mine. I use the reel to fish the bait that I'm fishing. I'm not real good with rods. My arms won't hold up, you know, for long periods of time if I have to do a lot of twitching with jerk baits or a lot of running crankbaits. So I use the reel all the time anyway. If I really get into concentrating on the fish and the bite, I have to watch the rod. The slightest bite at 40 foot is nearly you can hardly feel it. It's like almost an imaginary bite. A big bass will pick up a bait at 40 foot and you just have to imagine that he bit. I'll watch the very tip. Generally, my line will drop slack. If I have a steady retrieve and the line is steadily traveling toward me and never slack, and all of a sudden it becomes slack and drops toward the boat, then I have a fish pushing the bait. He's already loaded up, even though I didn't feel him. It's a matter of catching up to the fish and setting hook.
When the Pro-Am anglers return to the Kimberling Inn for the final weigh-in, Brad Richmond comes in with 4 solid keepers, but it's not enough to overtake Mike Smith's lead. Then Frank Divis comes to the scales.
Got the limit, 5 fish. He won a title last year here on Table Rock Lake. Oh, look at this limit of fish here. Here we go. Here we go. Look at this sack of fish. Get back, everybody. 14.65 pounds. My goodness. What'd you catch him on?
Got him deep, Ernie.
Deep, Ernie, he says. I didn't ask you where. I said what?
Got him on a crankbait.
On a crankbait. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is, 35.80 pounds. That's your leader in the amateur division.
Finally, only second-day leader Mike Smith has a chance to overtake Divis.
Here we go. He's got 4 bass. He goes into this with 22.55 they weigh. 7 point. Hold it. 8 pounds even.
Smith can't do it, and Frank Divis wins his second tournament on Table Rock in 2 years. In the Pro Division, the race is in turmoil. Larry Seeger has come in without a keeper, and now it's anybody's ball game. Lake of the Ozarks Pro-Am winner Troy Akins comes in with 4 solid bass to take the early lead with 35.45 pounds. A short time later, he's challenged by Eric Holt.
He's got 25.65 pounds going into this. You do have the limit, of course.
Yeah, I sure do.
All right, let's see what we're going to do here. Leading the tournament still. Right now, Troy Akins with 35 pounds. That's gone. Look at here, look at here, look at here. 18.40 pounds. My goodness gracious. Did the big uns bite for you today?
I fished a lot different today, Ernie. The first day, I went for numbers, and I probably caught 30 keepers and 30 or 40 short fish. And during practice, I was fishing like that, and I was catching some big fish once in a while. And boy, the first day, I kept thinking I'd get a big one, kept thinking I would, and it just never did happen. Yesterday, I kind of got stuck in the same rut. I only had about 15 keepers yesterday, but man, when you're catching fish, it's tough to leave them, you know, and I just couldn't force myself to leave them. And today, I left all that stuff in the rod locker and went and swung for the fence and came as close as I could.
Good job. How'd you catch these fish today?
I caught them cranking today.
Here it is, 44.05 pounds. A new leader in the Pro Division, Eric Holt.
Then Calvin Horn comes to the scales.
Calvin's never been on Table Rock until this time. He's going to be in this with 21 pounds. You got him again today?
A few.
A few. How many you got?
A limit.
Got a limit. Looks like you got a couple of good ones in there again.
I lost some big ones.
Lost some big ones, but it looks like we got a couple in there that look a little healthier than them little brownies you were bringing in on day one.
It takes me a while.
Takes me a while? Well, I'll tell you what, you've done real well in this tournament, 21.35. Look at this sack of fish. Look at here. Look at here. Here we go again. 15.60 pounds. My goodness gracious. 36.70 pounds. Calvin Horn, good job, sir.
A few minutes later, Larry Wilcox comes to the scales.
He had 13 pounds on day one, 16.85 on day 2. He's a former amateur division title holder. He's moved to our pro division. How many you got?
I got a limit again, Ernie.
Here we go, and it's a good, healthy limit, folks. It's going to go way on up there. Get on up. 14.40 pounds. Oh, buddy, you did it get him, did it get him? 44.25 pounds. A new leader in the pro division, Larry Wilcox.
A short time later, Dion Hibden makes his bid for the lead.
1997 Bassmaster Classic champion. Oh, looky here, and this is why he is who he is. Look in here. Look in here. Hold on, big girl. Hold on. Dion Hibden from Stover, Missouri. 20.40 pounds. 47.65 pounds. That's your leader right now in the pro division, Dion Hibden. You said that you fished real ugly yesterday, so you must have fished real pretty today.
Yeah, I did. I had a pretty exceptional fishing day. I landed most that bit me. broke a fish off, broke flipping stick. I didn't have a real pretty day of fishing. I just got lucky and caught a few of the right ones. My old dad has led me around by the nose all week this week, telling me that he won a tournament here, a U.S. bass tournament, if everybody remembers.
1942.
It could have been that long ago, I'm not sure, but he won it in the exact same time of the year, and the bushes were right about the same depth of water, and he's told me stuff that he remembered from 20 years ago the last couple of days, and it really is amazing that he's got a memory like that. And I hopped around today and fished stuff that I had never seen before and caught a lot of the fish that I weighed in.
Finally, it's all up to Brent Chapman.
He fished his first tournament with us in 1990 as an amateur. He's won 3 titles with us. He's a 2-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier. He was in second place at the end of day 2 with 31.30 pounds. Do you have a limit?
Yes, Ernie.
Here we go. Is it going to be enough to get Dion Hibden? I'm going to mess around here. 13.25 pounds. Oh, is that going to do her? Where's that 5-pound bite today?
I didn't get one, Ernie. I'm just real happy to have what I had. At 10 o'clock, I didn't have a fish, and I learned a lot about following intuitions today. Something Randy Blockett and Rick Clun have taught me a lot about. And last night I told my dad, I said, you know, I just need to go down to the lower end of the lake and fish where nobody's fishing. And at 10 o'clock I was still fishing around here and hadn't had a fish. And finally I didn't have anything to lose, so I went down by the dam and had a limit of fish in an hour. I just never got any big bites today, but you know, I'm real happy with how my day went.
Well, I don't have a leader announcement for you, but I think I've got a second place announcement right now. 44.55 pounds, Brent Chapman from Lake Bavara, Kansas.
It's official now. Dion Hibden's remarkable final day catch carries him to his 3rd Central Pro-Am victory with a 3-day total of 47.65 pounds. Right behind Hibden on the Quantum Pro-Am scoreboard is Brent Chapman, who finishes with 44.55 pounds, edging out Larry Wilcox for 2nd place by a mere 5 ounces, while Eric Holt and Terry Thomas are close behind in 4th and 5th place. In the rest of the top 10, Pro Division rookie Howard Buning leads the way in 6th place, followed by Mark Tucker, Ken McTeer, Calvin Horn, and Jackie Davis. In the amateur division, Frank Divis wins his 2nd Central Pro-Am title with 35.8 pounds, giving him a 5-pound advantage over runner-up Mike Smith, while Ron Chapman, Larry Stevie, and Brian Herndon round out the top 5. In the rest of the top 10, Ron Foss barely outdistances Darren Compton for 6th place, with Steve Bingham, Dale King, and Brad Richmond close behind. Stay tuned for tournament winning tips from Dion Hibden. We'll be and the internet for tips from the top. Techniques you can use to catch more fish. Brought to you by Ranger Boats, where they still build them one at a time.
Anytime you come to any of these lakes in this part of the country, Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, and the water's up and in the bushes, it's kind of a no-brainer what I did, you know, in this tournament. You might not catch a lot of fish, but you will catch some good ones. The 2nd day of the tournament, I fished right past them. I mean, I only caught 3 bass, had 4 keeper bites, and the fish, the water has stayed pretty stable. And with this kind of water temperature, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. The first day I caught them pretty loose. You know, I could just pitch my bacon rind in there, and it would hit around the edges of the bushes, and they would get it, you know, for the most part. And I think that's because the water was coming up. It was rising. Needless to say, it's been up for 3 or 4 days, and it stayed pretty stable. And yesterday, they did exactly what they're supposed to do. They got right down in the middle of those bushes, and they really got tight in them. And I fished right by them. You know, I caught what I caught, you know, still fishing loose. Today, fortunately, the first fish that I caught told me exactly what I'd done wrong the day before. And every fish I caught was in the center of a big old thick woolly bush or a thick willow, whatever it was. It was the thickest bush in the area. And flipping right down in the centers of those things, the whole key to it is that first 1.5 feet. If you can make that fish come this far, you have a shot at landing him. When I would pitch my bait into these bushes, at all times, when I'd make my pitch up into the bush, right in the heart of the bush, and I'd have my rod fairly high. but I would engage my reel and I'd follow it down. And by following it down, you're always in a good position to jerk and set the hook. And as soon as it would hit the bottom, I would immediately take up a little bit of slack, because normally that's when he was there. If he was in the bush, most of the fish hit on the way down. But when I would be ready, my rod would be at about about this angle in the in my hand. That way, when I knew I had a bite, I would set, and when I'd set, I'm basically pull. It's not just a snap hook set, but I would pull, because you need to pull him about that far from the bottom of that bush and get him up in the limbs of it. And once you get him up in the limbs of it, then you've pretty much got the battle won. A lot of people feed it line, and when you feed line to it, when you pitch it in there and you feed it line, you're out of position right there. And most of the fish that I caught were biting me as soon as it was going in. So therefore, I pitch it in there and I keep a high rod. And when I got a high rod, I just follow it to the bottom. And as I'm following down, if he gets it, I'm in good position right there to set the hook and pull him how I need to.
There's always a little second guessing when you introduce a new event. Well, after the last 3 days, there's no more second guessing about the Titleist Pro-Am Bass Tournament. It'll be a permanent event on Central Pro-Am's tournament trail. Hey, thanks for being with us today. Take care, and good fishing.
The Fishin' Magazine television series is brought to you by Ranger Boats. Still building them one at a time, so you can fish hard, run strong, and rest easy. Bass Pro Shops. Quantum and Motor Guide, the choice of serious fishermen. L&L Marine Care.